Middle class and poor white men get their rage from realizing that the promise of their white skin being all they needed was a lie. That when you have to put them against other people to truly compete, they lose. They lose. And so their rage is the lie that was told to them by the elite, the upper class, that the only thing they had to do was be white and their lives would be easy. They're waking up to that lie. Because when you have to compete with people that the system told you is inferior to you, not as smart as you, not as strong as you, not as bright as you, and then you go out into the world and you're not as smart, you're not as strong, and you're not as bright, and your life to some degree looks worse than the people's lives, particularly black people, who the system told you is supposed to be beneath you. The rage when you drive through a neighborhood and it's beautiful houses and nice cars and great jobs and kids that love their moms and their dads, and you're a white man looking at that, and you live down at the trailer park and you could barely get a good job. Your wife is drunk, right? Because she still has to deal with you. So she's drinking her life away, right? That's rage. White rage is always in comparison to black excellence or black accomplishment. So whenever black people specifically, and the goalpost keeps moving for white rage. It's always going to land and end on black people. But then you add immigrants, then you add gay people, whatever marginalized that the system told white men is beneath them. Because remember, white men are supposed to be at the top of the food chain. They didn't read the fine print though. It's wealthy white men at the top of the food chain. They didn't read the fine print. And so now they're living a reality that doesn't reflect the lie that was sold to them. And for the wealthy white men, their rage is tied to this white replacement therapy, right? This is why Musk is having all these children and telling everybody they want babies, because their rage is about black and brown people outnumber white people. White people only make up 7% of the world's population. This is why they hoard all the weapons and power, because they don't have numbers. So if they don't have numbers, they will control it through rage. That's where the rage comes from. And they have convinced white women that they need to be just as angry as them about being replaced. They have convinced them, right? They have convinced women the way that the 1% convinced poor whites, right? If you haven't read about the Bacon Rebellion, go read it, right? Poor people were starting to get solidarity around being poor and going after the 1%. And the 1% went, oh, no, we got to do something about that. So they gave poor white people race. They told them, you're better than the Negroes. You're better than the Asians. You're better than everybody else, right? To break up solidarity with poor white people being in solidarity with other poor people. So they gave them race to distract them. And now white men have given white women the idea that they are better. They are the beauty standard. They are number one. So a lot of white women's rage is coming out into the world and seeing beautiful black women, beautiful brown women, beautiful Asian women. This is why white women really like to drive home the point, particularly when they get a black man. Because what it solidifies to them is, we are the beauty standard. Everybody wants us. This is why when they encounter black men that don't like them, they fucking glitch. Because the white men that set up the beauty standard distracts them with beauty and blonde hair, right? This is why they come telling us, at least I can grow my, white men give white women beauty to distract them. In the way that poor, rich white men gave poor white men race to distract them. This is why when a white woman argues with anybody else, the first thing she goes to, it's never your intelligence, right? It's never your smarts. It's always, I can grow my own hair. And they always go to hair. They always, when white women attack black women, they always attack us about beauty, because that's what white men gave them, to tell them they're better than us. In the same way that rich white men gave poor white men race to tell them they're better than us.
See, when one is used to getting advantages, equity, equality sounds like oppression to them. Remember, black Americans worked so much hard to make the US be what it is today. And understand that white people have always been placed at the front. They've always been placed at the forefront of the discovery of everything, the discovery as the most intelligent people. Understand that history is revealing something so much important. History is revealing something that I feel and I think that should be taught in every schools. Because look, there is no group in history of people as lazy as white people. Understand that this is just an exposure that is coming out. And the exposure is showing white men as mediocres, as they have nothing of their own that they have built in history. And this is being proven by history, brothers and sisters, And trying to understand and see things that are happening today, that really makes sense. Because while Black Americans were working so hard, they were working because of favors that they were getting. What it takes a Black person to build doesn't take a white person to break a sweat. That's then. Understand that. That's then. And this bred a group of mediocre white people who have nothing for themselves, people who are not even experienced in seeing people go through hardness. They don't understand all these things because they have never gone through this. So this concept is often discussed as a critique of system of privilege, not as a claim about every individual. Understand that in the United States, whiteness, particularly amongst white masculinity, has historically been positioned as the default standard of competence, leadership, and authority. And for generations, many institutions were designed in ways that favor white men, regardless of merit. So allowing average or unqualified individuals to advance simply because the system assumed their suitability. And over time, this produced a belief, sometimes unspoken, sometimes explicit, that opportunity was an entitlement rather than something that had to be earned. Brothers and sisters, buckle up for this video. I'm going to be back with my thoughts in regards to this. But until then, let's watch the video. I'm going to be back.
People ask me why I was such a diehard Trump supporter. This was the reason why. Because of this comment right here. I felt like this. I felt like that in 2024 that white men were the only people who were legally discriminated against. In fact, I'll take it a step further. It was the white, straight, Christian, conservative male that would be discriminated against in 2024 in the United States of America. We had tolerance for everyone else but us. And truth be told, it wasn't until I realized how ignorant and uneducated I truly was that I began to think and feel and live differently. Growing up in a society and a system that by design centers and caters white, straight, Christian males, anytime you see any other type of inclusivity, any type of diversity, equity, and inclusion, it will begin to feel like oppression. And that's sad that this is the truth about the world that we live in today. And people say all the time that if we just stop talking about racism, that it will go away. People believe that because they don't experience interpersonal racism, that it doesn't exist on an institutional or a systemic level. But it's because of comments like this that we know it's alive and well. People will be like, well, we don't have a white entertainment channel, or we don't have historically white colleges. We don't have a white history month. We don't have white-owned businesses. When literally whiteness has been the standard in this country since the birth of the nation. I remember when I first started seeing interracial commercials, and I would get so mad, I'd be so triggered. And I'd say things to myself and to friends and family, I don't care what you do, I don't care about interracial dating, but why do they have to shove this down our throat? And the same thing with gay pride or trans talk. I would get so triggered, I don't care what you do, but why do you have to shove it down our throat? But could you imagine for 1 second being a member of one of these marginalized groups growing up in this country? What it must feel like to have whiteness or straightness or Christianity shoved down your throat every single second of the day? And then when you begin to question it or try to create a safe space for yourself, you're told to go live in another country if you don't like it. Or stop being the victim. Or don't blame the system, you need to take personal accountability. And this is the question I have for people who get upset about it, because I know a lot of people in my everyday life are still upset about it. Why are you so triggered? How hard is it to deconstruct and re-educate? And why are we so afraid to do so? Are we that insecure? Are we that fragile? Are we that mediocre that we cannot compete in a world that has a level playing field and equal opportunity for every single person? I mean, hell, if we really think about it, if we really want to get mad, we need to get mad at our ancestors. We had a 400-year head start, and many of us are still living in the trailer park. But for real, though, why does inclusivity feel like oppression to us? Why do we get so triggered? Why do we think it's a zero-sum game? Why do we look at it as a piece of pie in which if somebody else gets a piece of the pie that we don't get our piece? And I have a very unpopular belief that I'm going to share with you, and I stand on it, and many people are going to be triggered by this. But in 2024, if you're white in America, you're racist. Unless you've actively chosen to do the work to become less racist. But by default, if you're born into this system with our institutions, the way that we are taught, programmed, and conditioned, through no fault of your own, you have been taught and programmed to be racist. And this is why education is so important. And don't take it personal. I'm not attacking your character unless you willfully refuse to learn. I'm attacking your education and your beliefs. And I challenge you to become willing to see the world from a different perspective. That's all. That simple. So ask yourself this question. One simple question. Are you up for the task? Are you willing to learn?
Just finished a morning run, sweating bullets, but I have to say this while I'm thinking about it. Almost every week, I see someone ask the question, why are white men so angry? And while I cannot begin to expound on the many reasons why that might be, what I can say is this: I view all social problems through a lens of societal systems, because as a sociologist, that's what I'm trained to do. And here is the design flaw in systems of privilege. When you build systems of hierarchy and privilege, when you build systems of hierarchy and privilege, the privilege is actually what weakens you. The privilege makes you weak because when you socialize an entire group of people to believe that I exist, therefore I deserve. I exist, therefore I am entitled. I exist, therefore the path of prosperity should be laid out very cleanly ahead of me, and I don't have to work hard, and I don't have to struggle, and I don't have to dig deep. I just have to receive. Meanwhile, you are socializing all other groups to survive with less resources, with less privilege. And so as a byproduct of their survival, they are becoming adaptable, resilient, creative, resourceful. They are developing the muscle for survival that they subsequently turn into systems for success and prosperity. Meanwhile, the privileged group is not developing these systems. And when they start to see the disenfranchised group becoming stronger, gaining opportunities, building systems of success, rather than say, hey, maybe we ought to be doing that too, no. Privilege doubles down. Privilege digs deep into the well of anger and grievance and says, you are the reason why I can't be successful. You are taking opportunities away from me and my children and generations. And so now, rather than develop the muscle of resilience, what I'm going to do now is start taking privileges away from you. And now I'm going to start taking your resources, and now I'm going to start burning your house down in hopes that you will get back to where I think you ought to be, which is underneath me. Not realizing that the more you do that, the more privileges you take away, the more systems of success you try to dismantle, you are only making them more creative, more adaptable, more resilient, and more resourceful. So it becomes this Ouroboros, this snake eating its own tail, because the very system that you designed to uplift yourself is actually the one that is putting you far behind, because you never develop the muscle, the work ethic, the resilience, the innovation, and the creativity as the disenfranchised group.
In this time and age, I think it's time that white people stop blaming black people and people of color in general for their problems. They should start looking at themselves in the mirror and actually realizing that they are their own biggest problem. More mass shootings and white on white crime are higher than black on white or white on black. More white people attack their own white people. More white people attack white officers more than black people attack white officers. More white people kill and shoot and do all kinds of things to their kids and their wives and their whole community as white people. And we have seen this time and time again where white people have been exhumed or have been forgiven for their mistakes, their past mistakes and their present mistakes, and they still go back to doing the same things. They have been taught that just because you exist and you're a white person, no matter the reason that you're poor or you don't really have skills to probably go beyond maybe a black person, a person who you have been taught should always be below you. They always stand to white rage. So they start buying guns and killing everyone and going on social media and commenting racist things to black creators or black people who are actually making a living for themselves, not realizing that they should probably be learning from that. and actually look within themselves and realize that their ancestors failed them. Your ancestors failed you, white people. But before I give my full commentary, let's dive in, listen to what other people have to say, then we'll come back and talk about it. See you shortly.
We don't use white men's crime statistics against them enough for me. I'm not gonna hold you. It makes no sense for y'all to constantly preach pattern recognition and statistics, but then your worst stereotype for black women is being loud, driving Nissan Altimas, and having baby daddies, but your worst statistics is mass shootings and touching kids. I don't give a fuck. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. That makes no sense to me. That makes absolutely zero fucking sense to me. You are known for touching kids. You make up the kids touching rates. Most of the kids touching rates. And you're mad at me because I wear wigs and weaves. Like, shut the fuck. And the same thing when it comes to like talking about the way black women look or how big they are. We outlive white men. I don't care. We outlive white teen men. I don't give a fuck. Right? If all it takes for me to outlive you an extra 3 years is for me to lose weight, right? I don't think you should be talking. That makes no damn sense to me that y'all don't be using them niggas statistics enough against them for real. Y'all don't be precious enough for me. Y'all really the fuck don't, because ain't no way y'all be doing the things y'all doing and then got the nerve to talk about any motherfucking body, especially black women. That makes absolutely no sense.
The most dangerous, vindictive demographic that you need to watch out for are the mediocre white men. Because what do you mean? You can clean up and look good, put on some nice clothes, and people will believe that you belong in leadership. What do you mean that people will listen to you when you speak? Automatically gain respect. Having that kind of advantage and still being poor and mediocre tells you a lot about that person's mindset. Hard done by. Victim mindset, and then someone else has to pay. Look at the majority of the supremacist movement and who actually funds that movement. Who's the majority in the movement? You may think that the most privileged white men are the movement, but that's not true. The bottom of the hierarchy think that this is the way to gain power. I'm still gonna include the liberal, mediocre white men in this group because they just found their way of coping to coast being mediocre. They benefit off of other people's labor. That's their strategy. They love to be low effort, coast, and they believe that's their right and entitlement. If you're a hard worker and someone very competent, they love that about you. They love to powergasm. They love to ride on the backs, especially women of the global majority, because that's where they can feel powerful. You are worth more, but they can have power over you. They love that. Do not ever get enmeshed with these individuals because it's hard enough to deal with them in corporate and business. You do not want them in your house or have finances entangled with this person. He feels entitled to your labor, and he's gonna make sure that you pay him with a lifetime of slavery.
White supremacy relies on us to stay in line, to obey, to mold into the boxes they have created to further colonial and imperialistic ideologies. They've done this by creating hierarchies and binaries rooted in Eurocentric and Anglo-American values. White people created binaries as a tool for their colonization by labeling those they were colonizing and by labeling those that were living outside the binary as savage or barbaric. They did this to justify the Atlantic slave trade. They did this to justify the forced removal of Native Americans from their land. They do it to justify the genocide in Palestine. These binaries that tell us we are male, female, disabled, able-bodied, straight, gay, rich, poor, they're all made up. They're made up to control us and to exploit us. We are indoctrinated to obey authority. So we blindly believe, or we force ourselves to conform into these boxes, giving up our freedom. You are not free if you exist in the confines of the binary. When you exist outside of the binary, you're harder to control. You're harder to exploit for your labor. That's why we see the people who disobey authority and the people who live outside the binary, they're oppressed, they're criminalized, they have campaigns denying their existence just for being free. Freedom is something this country goes so hard for, and it's all an illusion. You have been led to believe you're free, and you blindly follow these white supremacist foundations that tell you who and what you can be.
I was just rereading this book, Mediocre, here, and it reminds me of a passage that I just read. Listen to this. When I talk about mediocrity, I'm talking about the ways in which we can't imagine an America where women aren't sexually harassed at work, where our young people of color aren't funneled into under-resourced schools, all because it would challenge the idea of white male as the center of our country. This is not a benign mediocrity. It is brutal. It is a mediocrity that maintains a violent, sexist, racist status quo that robs us of our most promising of true greatness. I think that passage encompasses what I and a lot of other people mean when we say mediocre white man. We're not talking about this benign thing that's a little funny to laugh at. We're talking about an act of violence towards marginalized people in our society that is seen as the status quo, that is seen as normal. His mediocrity is seen as normal, and that is the thing that we need to change. Not just get rid of individuals who cause problematic things online. We should also do that as well. But we should change the mindset of a generation. A group of men are growing up thinking that that guy is normal.
White people blame us for their problems. Let me give you a prime example. I'm in Roseburg, Oregon, right? You got a bunch of white meth addicts. They can't stop doing meth. They love meth. Meth is like water to them. And they blame black people for that. I hired a farmhand who was she identifies as a white guy, but he's fucking Hispanic. And he's sitting there talking about how, well, I used to have problems with black people because we used to blame them for their problems. You're blaming us for your problems. They are so used to us being slaves. They are so used to us cleaning their fucking houses, taking care of their goddamn kids, tending to their fucking fields, to the point where they cannot function on their own. Many of them, they're like children, like stupid, meth addict, inbred children. So I want you to understand something, right? Some of the animosity that you're seeing, like in places like Roseburg, Oregon, very, very white town, is because they can't stop doing meth. They can't stop banging their fucking sister, so they want to blame you for it, for their own bullshit meth-fueled actions.
We will police every damn thing, but God forbid somebody investigate and intervene and apprehend these white men. They are easily the most dangerous demographic in this country. And every day we sit around with our fucking thumbs in our asses going like, what? But which bathroom are you going to use? What the fuck? What the fuck? I'm crashing out thinking about all of the violence that we are enduring because white cis men and Christianity are fucking literally everything up. And we're talking about what bathrooms we use. You don't want to give the money to the schools? These people are out to kill us all. And it's also they can protect white men. Mediocre white men at that.
People are living in a place where their advantage, things working in their advantage, was normalized. And so because of this advantage was normalized, it often went unnoticed by those who benefited from it. Understand that when doors open automatically, it is easy to confuse access with ability. Many white men were raised in environments where failure was cushioned. Mistakes were forgiven, and second chances were plentiful. This did not require malicious intent. It was the result of a society that consistently gave them the benefit of doubt. Meanwhile, others, especially black people, were required to overperform just to be considered equal, let alone exceptional. So you understand all this concept and how all these things worked. Now, as America has slowly become more diverse and competitive, those unearned advantages had begun to erode. Globalization, technology, and social movements have expanded who gets visibility, opportunity, and voice. And so in spaces where performance and results matter more than identity, mediocrity is harder to hide. This shift has exposed a gap between confidence and competence among some who were previously protected by the system. What once looked like leadership now appears like an entitlement when stripped of automatic validation. Now, the danger emerges when this exposure is met with resentment instead of self-reflection. Rather than adapting, improving skills, or accepting accountability, some respond by blaming diversity, inclusion, or marginalized groups for their struggles. Now, this reaction reveals how deeply the deeply the expectation of an earned advantage was embedded. When people believe opportunity is owed to them, equality can feel like oppression. The threat is not mediocrity itself. Every society has average performers, but the refusal to accept a level playing field. American history shows that this pattern is not new. Moments of progress have often been met with backlash from those who felt displaced. When civil rights, women's rights, or labor protection expanded, some white men interpreted these changes as losses rather than corrections. And this mindset can become socially dangerous when it fuels hostility, reactionary politics, or support for systems that punish others to restore a sense of dominance. At the same time, the exposure of this dynamic has also revealed the strength and competence of those who were previously excluded. Now, as barriers slowly fall, it becomes clear that excellence was never lacking. Opportunity wars. Black professionals, women, immigrants, and other marginalized groups have demonstrated innovation and leadership once access was no longer restricted. This contrast further undermines the myth that whiteness or masculinity alone guarantees ability. So what's most important is that the exposure of this dynamic also revealed the strength and competence of those who were previously excluded. As the barriers slowly fall, it becomes clear that excellence was never lacking. Opportunity wars. Black professionals, women, they all displayed their power. They all displayed what they're capable of. So this conversation is not about humiliation or revenge. It is about accountability. A healthy society does not collapse because privilege is questioned. It improves when standards are applied fairly. The danger lies not in losing unfair advantages, but in refusing to grow without them. Systems that reward entitlement over effort stagnate, while those that reward competence evolve. So brothers and sisters, please let me know what you think and feel about this video. I'm your host and presenter, Stories. I'm hoping that we are always learning. I'm hoping that we are always integrating all this information that we learn from these videos that I react on. So brothers and sisters, I'm hoping to see you again on my next video. But until then, peace, love, and harmony. Salute.